More reliable than a Ryan Braun press conference. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans.
That didn't make any sense.
What?
That didn't make any sense.
What do you mean it didn't make any sense?
I thought you were going to say more reliable than a Ryan Braun drug test, but...
No, because as I will play as we get into our first topic, obviously, is Ryan Braun, folks. I don't mean to pull the wool off everybody's eyes too soon, but you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when I make that opening line. Just trust me. Just trust me.
Well, hi, man.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Welcome to the show, folks. The reminder that this and every broadcast is brought to you by CG Imaging. That's cg-imaging.com. CG Imaging, virtually creating reality. So, you can, the phone number to call in, folks, is 585-633-7487. That phone number again is 585-633-7487. You can email us at youguysuck@87sportsfans.com. And also Twitter at 87sportsfans or Facebook.com/87sportsfans. So, how was your week, sir?
It's been interesting, but hey, it's 1 week closer to the big week.
The big week.
The week. It's about 2.5 weeks now.
The week where you kiss your manhood goodbye.
Oh, I've kissed that goodbye a long time ago. But doing good. How was your week?
Cannot complain. Cannot complain.
That's
Obviously
good.
better than Ryan Braun. Ryan Braun, the former National League MVP, Milwaukee Brewers left fielder, suspended, a negotiated suspension for the remainder of the 2013 season. What do you make of all this mess?
Well, honestly, I think he got off easy. I think he actually is having a better week than a lot of people think, because to me, I think this is a slap on the wrist. They obviously didn't want him as much as they wanted people like Alex Rodriguez. But by Ryan Braun accepting the terms of this deal he made, he's given full credibility to anything the prosecution has to throw at all these. I shouldn't say prosecution. It's not a trial, but all the evidence that they have against these players, Braun is just given complete credibility to. And for him, I mean, he is going to lose the second half of this season, which this is out of his long-term over $100 million deal. This is one of the lower, because it's a back-ended deal, so this is one of the lower payout years. So he's going to, and his team isn't in contention for the playoffs at all. They're one of the worst teams in baseball. So he's going to get to go on vacation for an extended period of time and then start next season in spring training fresh. To me, I mean, because honestly, no one's going to give a hoot about him 2 or 3 years from now. No one's going to even remember any of this with Ryan Braun, because before this came out, yeah, he won the MVP, but he still wasn't one of those huge name players where, unless you're a baseball, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who aren't baseball fans, and no one knows who he is until his name came out. And it's not like the whole A-Rod or Roger Clemens or McGuire or Sosa, where everyone knew them just because they were larger than the game. So to me, I think Braun got off easy. But if Major League Baseball did it, made this deal with him and made it as lenient as it is for the fact that they want to go after the bigger fish, I can kind of understand why they did it. Because now, I mean, what wiggle room does A-Rod have? None. None whatsoever.
And he's already reportedly trying to negotiate a settlement similar to what Ryan Braun got from Major League Baseball, but based on the previous confession, where he claimed he didn't know what he was putting in his body, which I think is a whole lot of crap.
Yeah. Well, he said he never even had been to the place. He didn't know any of the people that worked there. He didn't know anything about it. And now they have, signed documents and cashed checks from him proving that he has been in there multiple times.
Right, and then when you couple it with the fact that incident where he said it was a substance that he could get on the streets of the Dominican Republic, and no one really thought twice about it in that community.
Yeah.
To me, that's. I mean, we've been through this. We talked through this multiple times on this show, so I don't really want to beat a dead horse. But I think that nothing short of banning Alex Rodriguez is appropriate. I can understand if somebody honestly makes a mistake, tests positive, they can get a second chance. But here is somebody that has already been caught, fessed up, and then went right back. And the only reason that he did it was because he thought somebody had found something that no one could test for. Yeah. He thought he wouldn't get caught. And then you have the absolute soap opera that is taking place between the Yankees and him right now today, with him getting his own doctor to get a second opinion on his quad, and now he's trying to tell the Yankees, "Well, I'm not really hurt."
Yeah.
So, but getting back with Ryan Braun, let's listen to the audio of that press conference where he, was exonerated when his suspension was overturned because of a technicality in the handling of the sample. This is Ryan Braun in 2012.
Thank you to Michael Weiner and the Players Association for supporting me through this situation and through this challenge. I want to thank the entire Milwaukee Brewers organization, starting with Mark Attanasio, who truly represents everything that's good about our game today. I want to thank my teammates, many of whom are here today, have supported me through this entire situation. I want to thank my family, my friends, a lot of other players around the league who have supported me, who have been there for me, and who have stood by me through the biggest challenge I've ever faced in my life. I also want to thank athletes in other sports who have stepped up, shown their support, and been there for me. I want to take a moment to especially thank the fans, all the fans who have supported me, as well as the fans who withheld judgment as I respected the confidentiality of this case. As I've previously stated, this is without a doubt the biggest challenge I've ever faced in my life, and it's made it that much more challenging that I've had to deal with it publicly. But I truly view this challenge as an opportunity, just as I viewed every other challenge I've faced in my life as an opportunity. I've tried to respect this process, even though the confidentiality of the process was breached early on. I've tried to handle the entire situation with honor, with integrity, with class, with dignity, and with professionalism, because that's who I am, and that's how I've always lived my life.
He's done after that point.
Yeah.
Everything he said after that, and there's a lot to that press conference that I'm not even going to get to, but that statement alone, once you get up to that point and you go back and you look into this issue in retrospect, from that press conference on, he has absolutely no leg to stand on with anybody ever again.
No, not something, yeah. And what I was saying earlier, I wasn't standing up for him. I think Ryan Braun is a big piece of garbage. He's an arrogant, cocky douche who's going to make, well over $100 million through the rest of his career, which, who knows, he's guaranteed. I think most of that money is guaranteed to him.
No, baseball, it's all guaranteed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So he's going to be just worth more money than God by cheating, and he's going to get away with it. And he's a piece of garbage. And, it's not only his credibility he's ruining that of his teammates, his coaching staff, and as much as I despise the guy because I think he's just as much of an arrogant douche, look what he's done to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, who's his partner in the restaurant in Wisconsin and also one of his best friends, put up his year's salary online to a tweeter who tweeted how crooked Braun is, saying that he would give up a year's salary because he believes that much that Braun is innocent and whatnot. So, I mean, here's somebody playing in a different sport that was made to look like a complete jackass because he backed the wrong horse. He thought he had somebody that he could trust and somebody he could believe in, and he ended up screwing him as well. And so Ryan Braun, I think, is going to have he's going to have an easy time as far as being able to come back from this, I believe, because, once again, fans will forget. But, like you said, as far as credibility, if anything like this ever came up again in his future, I don't think he would have a shot in hell of getting away with it.
Oh, no. Which brings us to the next issue now, with him winning such a prestigious award as the National League MVP. Matt Kemp, ESPN asked Matt Kemp whether Ryan Braun should be stripped. And now we're going to have a little commercial because I had to restart the video from ESPN.com.
Way to go.
But yeah, I had this all queued up before.
See? That's what happens then.
It's just our luck in this show.
It is.
Right, so let's see if I can.
At that time and should be stripped.
Whew, I mean, do I feel like it should be stripped? I do. I feel like it should be, but that's not for me to decide. That's not for me to decide.
So he smiled and he joked around it, and actually that video is credited to the Associated Press on ESPN.com. But Matt Kemp, for those that don't remember, finished second in MVP voting that year. So obviously he's got a horse in the fight with this issue. But do you think that it does anybody any good at this point to go back and strip somebody of that award?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Now, when I say stripped of the award, I don't believe that it should be given to Kemp, because some people are saying, should we strip it and give it to Kemp? No. Kemp obviously deserved it, and a lot of people thought he deserved it during that season. But to take it away and give it to him, that sets a precedence for other sports and or even baseball in similar situations that I don't think you want to really dig up. But I was listening to one of our local sports radio shows, and somebody a caller brought up a really good point. If they strip it and in the record book leave it blank, sometimes that carries more weight than if there was an asterisk or if it was changed. Because if you leave it blank, and people will, 20, 30 years from now say, hey, I wonder who won the MVP this year, and they look it up, and they see that blank, that will make them look for why it's blank, and then it'll bring all this back up. And I think that's a legacy that should follow Braun for the rest of his career and into his life after baseball, is he should be remembered. I mean, look at poor Pete Rose. All he did was gamble on baseball, which, it was bad. He said he gambled on his own team, gambled for them to win. He has a lifetime ban, and now anytime anyone talks about Pete Rose, all they mention is gambling on baseball. They don't mention all of his achievements on the field before he became a manager. But with Ryan Braun, like I said, the way society is, 3 years from now, this could be forgotten because something else is going to come up, or someone's going to do something that's going to become a bigger scandal, or the A-Rod thing could become something much bigger than what Braun's was, and then everyone forgets about Ryan Braun's. And I think it's something that should be a stigma on his career, and to me, leaving it blank would be a very, very loud statement.
It just seems like, with all that we're talking about, and excuse me, all of the possible ramifications, all the things that should happen, I can't get past the idea that at the end of the day, Ryan Braun is still going to walk away with a gross of over $100 million. So it brings me back to the argument, and for the record, my answer is that the award should be vacated and it shouldn't be given. It shouldn't be given to Kemp because where are you going to draw the line there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it should just be vacated and nobody should be listed. If we can go a year without a World Series winner in the record book and still survive it, we can go a year without an MVP listed in the record book.
Absolutely. It's history. It's something that should be down.
Where I disagree with you is the idea that it'll force people to remember why. I don't really think the players are really going to care all that much. The attitudes are changing from what everybody is reporting among the players, and it's because especially the guys that are clean and really trying to eke out a career when they're up against players that are taking an unfair advantage. I totally understand that mindset. But for right now, it's only a matter of time before the next biogenesis comes down the pike and convinces a player that they won't get caught because Major League Baseball doesn't have a test for it yet, So the idea that this is all going to go away eventually, Ryan Braun is really, he's the big story right now because he's the first domino to fall in the biogenesis scheme, or whatever you want to call it, the biogenesis arena. But he's really, like I tweeted today, a guppy in an ocean. There is so much more to deal with, and so much more people out there that are still using it, even in the wake of this whole fiasco, who believe that they're not going to be the ones that get caught. But you just wouldn't know it by the numbers because it seems like pitching has taken over. But I believe that in the end, Ryan Braun is unmarketable, but he's not going to care because he's got that guaranteed money.
Excuse me.
Bless you, sir.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
But in the end,
I'm allergic to your comment, Keith.
well, apparently you're allergic to disagreement. Whenever you're so angry, whenever I disagree with you, I don't even know who you are anymore. But it saves face for Major League Baseball and sets the precedent for them to go after the big fish like A-Rod. But in the end of the day, it's like hitting King Kong with a broom.
Yeah.
It's E for effort, but not really all going to accomplish all that much in the end. So now the other problem that I have with him is that he's really gone into hiding. And I got into a discussion on Twitter with, I'm not even going to say his name because he really is just a Twitter nudge.
Twitter nudges.
He's the worst when it comes. He offers up opinions, and then you present an opposing opinion, and you are either stupid or racist.
One of those people.
Yeah, there's no bringing up a counter argument or whatever because you don't know what you're talking about or you're racist.
Awesome.
It's pointless to even argue. But you know me, I can't run from an argument. So
no, competitive, Keith.
I have to charge into everyone headlong.
That's right.
Anyway, so he brought up the fact that Ryan Braun should be, or his opinion that Ryan Braun should be forced to face the media and comment. And my whole opinion on that is, for what?
Yeah, seriously.
Who's going to gain what? So that fans and journalists can thump their chest and feel good because the bad guy was caught. The bad guy wasn't caught. One of the co-conspirators, but Ryan Braun is not part and parcel of the whole steroid issue.
Yeah.
And by him commenting, and maybe he apologizes, and maybe he sounds contrite, and maybe he sounds sincere this time, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything except for those people that are angry and feel duped, feel a little better about themselves. So from Ryan Braun's perspective, I'm just keeping my mouth shut, and I will try to eke out whatever career I can possibly eke out after the suspension because I got my cash and no one's going to take that away from me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I mean, I think you're right. That guy really argued you on that?
Oh, yeah, because he said that I was wrong for even considering Ryan Braun's point of view. He said that was my problem. I always missed the point.
It's just that, well, here's the thing. To me, I don't think it's anything to do with Ryan Braun's point of view. I think it would be bad for baseball. And for those who want to continue to improve the legacy of the game and kind of keep all of these, awful and situations that have happened to tarnish its storied history throughout the generations away and just let it die. The last thing you want to do is to drag that lying, arrogant fool out into I really don't care what he has to say. I mean, he's lied over and over and over again, so why would anyone want to hear anything he has to say? He's not going to apologize. If he does, it's not going to be heartfelt. He doesn't care. He's a multimillionaire that he still has a job. You know, to me, I think it would be pointless. So I agree with you. I don't think that he should come out. I don't think he has to. I don't think they should make him. I think he just needs to go away for a while, and then, you know, he'll come back from his suspension, and he won't have the steroids anymore, and he'll become a mediocre player, and he'll be gone in a few years.
You know who I really feel sorry for, and that's the rest of the Milwaukee Brewers, because he's got an untradeable contract, unless there's some kind of loophole where the Brewers could void it, which no one's even talked about that, so I don't think that's even a possibility. But he's got an untradeable contract. He is now alienating all his teammates that went to bat for him, on one hand, and two, by not
bat.
No, I actually did not intend that pun.
I know.
But also by not facing the media, he's hanging them out to dry to answer all the questions for him. You know, it's really not that flattering a situation now, and he's a Brewer, unless he retires, which I doubt it. But he's a Brewer.
Yeah.
So it's an unfortunate situation for a small market team. You think about where the Brewers have gone in the last 5 years, from building up what we thought was a good base with J.J. Hardy and Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder, and then to get into the postseason and then make a splash with a trade for CeCe Sabathia. When that trade went down, I don't know about anybody else, but my I was blown away, because I never thought that the Milwaukee Brewers were one of those franchises that would pull the trigger on one of those deals for one of those type of players.
Exactly.
At the time. And then they do that, and he single-handedly carries them as far as he possibly could that postseason. Obviously, ultimately left for the Yankees, but he did all he could while he was in that Brewers uniform for those, I think ended up being 6 or 8 weeks. Okay. And then the wheels start to fall off. Prince Fielder goes to Detroit. And then you got the whole Braun situation come up. And now that team is as close to coming apart at the seams as any team can be. They're already in
if it wasn't for the bratwurst races, no one would watch those games.
And Bernie the Brewer, too.
Yeah. And, the one thing I was hoping this was going to do, this whole situation with Braun and A-Rod, I was hoping that maybe Major League Baseball and the owners would come to their senses and be like, well, maybe we shouldn't give these long-term, high-priced deals to players anymore, because, A, the majority of players that get these deals either don't pan out or they fall into some kind of scandal like this. And, of course, honestly, I brought this up yesterday to somebody at work, and it's the same day that Dustin Pedroia signs a $110 million 7-year deal. So it kind of, I don't know. I guess I'm wrong to think that there would ever be any kind of a end to the lunacy as far as the contracts go, but I must be wrong.
Oh no. With baseball, until there's a salary cap, you'll always get craziness like that.
Which is nuts. It really is crazy. I mean, to look at A-Rod, he's still owed $100 million. And he hasn't played in a season, pretty much. And he's still owed $100 million. Well, I mean, that's crazy. Right. He's 38 years old, and he's owed $100 million.
The man signed a 10-year, $240 or so million contract with the Texas Rangers when he left Seattle.
Yeah.
And then Cashman gave him even more stupider money when he went to, and I made up that term, more stupider. More
stupider. I was going to comment on that. Was awesome.
On his current contract. So, yes, there's no salary cap, and yes, it enables teams to do that, but no one twisted Brian Cashman's arm to give him that crazy money. So,
like you said, they won't, as long as they're allowed to give out these lunatic contracts. I mean, it's going to either have to come down to a salary cap, or even some of the big market teams. I know some of the smaller market teams are losing a ton of money because the ticket sales are down, especially with all the baseball packages you can get on DirecTV and whatnot. It's only going to be a matter of time until the large markets start taking that hit, and then they're not going to be able to afford to give out these kind of contracts.
Well, let's take a quick break. Good 25 minutes there on Ryan Braun, more than anybody should ever spend the rest of their lives. So,
and hopefully the last we'll ever spend on it.
When we come back, we'll break down some of the trades in the American League that happened over the course of the past couple days. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
Portions of the day's programming are reproduced by means of electrical transcriptions or tape recordings.
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio, brought to you every week by CG Imaging. And I'll take this opportunity to talk to you all about CG Imaging. Some of you
CG Imaging.
Listen to us talk and wonder what the heck it is these guys do. Well, what they do is they bring your ideas, your creations to life through 3D realistic animation. Say you are trying to pitch an idea to your boss, but your drawings and your words just aren't cutting it. Go to CG Imaging. Maybe you're trying to sell a product to a customer and you're trying to show them what your product will look like in their space. Go to CG Imaging. Maybe you're starting a business and you need a logo. They designed our logo and they designed the header for our website. So go to their website, cg-imaging.com, virtually creating reality. That phone number, once again, folks, 585-633-7487, 585-633-7487. You can also email us at youguyssuck@87sportsfans.com, at 87sportsfans on Twitter. And you can also get us on facebook.com/87sportsfans.
Yeah.
So
we're back.
During the break, I went and I checked that email, youguyssuck@87sportsfans.com. And your brother, Andrew, commented, because he's listening to the show at Spreaker.com, which is always an option, folks. And he commented, a week from now, Braun will be forgotten after A-Rod and others fall. He may be right, but Braun being the first domino is as important to baseball as anything else, just because it sets a precedent. And it also gives legitimacy to, like a lot of people have said, like they were talking about this on Mike and Mike, it gives legitimacy to everything that biogenesis has given them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So nobody's going to be able to really deny that Tony Bosch, if I remember, I think I got his name right, Tony Bosch, no one's going to be able to deny what he said anymore, because Ryan Braun, it was enough for Ryan Braun to capitulate. How's that word? And negotiate his suspension down.
It's a big word.
It's a big word. I know. I'm not. Sometimes I get caught up on the big words. Sometimes I use them incorrectly, but
not always. But sometimes.
Sometimes. Nobody's perfect. Damn it.
I am, Keith.
All right. So we had some trades in the American League of notice as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, and the Texas Rangers making what I think is a pretty decent splash by landing Matt Garza from the Chicago Cubs for really nothing more than prospects. I like the trade from the Cubs standpoint because they're not going anywhere anytime soon, and so the more prospects, the better. And Garza now, if you look at the Texas Rangers and where they are, and I just had their stats up here. Let me get back to where I was now. I swear to God, there's got to be some kind. There is a. I have weevils apparently in my house. That
you have to get antibiotics for those.
I get up from the computer, and they're gone, and all of a sudden things change.
No, I think it's just you change things without remembering. Well, I've seen you at your computer before, and you never stop screwing with things.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You have shiny penny syndrome. Anything flashes across the screen, it will change your attention.
Shiny penny syndrome.
Shiny penny syndrome.
Really? That's where we're going with this?
We're going with shiny penny syndrome. That's a legitimate medical condition. You could probably find a cream for it.
All right, so going into tonight's game, the Texas Rangers were 10 games above 500. I had ERA of 3.75, which puts them in the upper echelon. As far as I was trying to find out, see, this website does not have the best stats. They really don't. But you look at the Rangers roster, and to me, this move screams postseason. Yes, they're still chasing the Oakland A's. I personally have my reservations about whether or not the A's can hold on for the rest of the season. But once you get into the playoffs, your starting rotation becomes pretty much just a three-man rotation, and everyone else gets dumped in the bullpen. So, looking forward, Matt Garza pitching in a different league, playing for a Cubs team that was struggling. You can't really, look too much into his stats. But if you come out with a rotation in the postseason of Yu Darvish, Derek Holland, and Matt Garza in whatever order, you're starting out pretty good. To not sound like Bill Walton.
They're pretty good.
They're pretty good. So, what was your take on it?
I think. So here's the thing. Texas is a solid team. I think it's going to help them, but is it something that's going to push them over the hump? I don't know. I mean, it was like you said, they didn't lose much, so it wasn't necessarily something that's going to blow up in their face in the future. But the way I looked at it is, could they have done more? I know I'm just sounding greedy, but you have a team like Texas, they always seem to be on the cusp. They're right there, and they just need that one thing to push them over the edge. And I don't know if this is it. I mean, I know there's still 6 days left of possible trades in baseball, but I'm kind of indifferent about it. It's one of those things where it was kind of just a blip on my radar because it wasn't one of those like monumental blockbuster moves where you're like, wow, they're going to win the World Series now. They're definitely the favorites. But it was one that you're like, meh, yeah, that's good for them. They're gonna get a little better. And so to me, it's just going to be kind of a wait and see. And I think that's the problem with baseball is it's such a long season that a move like this is made. And if it was like the NFL and you trade a player and there's only like 6 games left, it makes a big deal depending on who the player is. But, I mean, with 60-plus games left, you're just kind of like, yeah, well, I'll just wait and see what happens. So it's kind of my take on the whole situation.
If you look, I mean, it is the American League, and you know that when I talk about the American League, I talk about...
Oh, you talk with disdain.
Cyber baseball.
Yep.
But they are scoring less than the league average in runs. So
True.
If there isn't a bat that was within their reach, the only other way that you can combat that would be to, upgrade your starting pitching a little bit to try to keep the other team off the board longer. Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that they didn't really give up much to get him. I mean, it's prospects.
I mean, it's kind of a win-win for them,
Yeah.
They're going to get better, and they didn't really lose much.
Right.
So, good for you, Texas.
Good for you. Now, if you can just catch those pesky Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I got to tell you, did you know, without looking at the standings, and maybe you already did today. So,
No, I haven't.
Okay. What team is behind the Texas Rangers for third in the AL West?
Is it the Oakland Athletics? Is that why you said it?
No, the A's are first, and the Rangers second.
I don't know.
The Seattle Mariners.
Really?
The Seattle Mariners, who are possibly playing some of the best baseball around these days, are now just a paltry, where to go, 4 games under 500, 48 and 52. They're still 10 games back, but no one thought that, and this prognosticator included, did not think that they would be anywhere near where they are right now.
Maybe they had something up their sleeve when they got rid of Ichiro, Everyone said, oh, that's going to be huge for the Yankees. Well, it hasn't really helped the Yankees that much. I mean, they're 6.5 games back, but Seattle could start rebuilding,
Seattle is 8-2 in their last 10.
Nice.
They're 27 and 26 at home, but they're still 6 games under 500 on the road. And they now, according to ESPN.com, have a 1.1% chance of making the playoffs.
It's better than a 1.0% chance. Yeah, but you know the thing? Right now, they're right there with the Angels, and who would have thunk that?
Well, yeah, the Angels being 47 and 52 was totally something that I didn't foresee.
Yeah.
So
if you put that into perspective, right now Seattle is tied with the Angels for winning percentage, which no, I never in a million years would have thought that.
Have you noticed that, I don't know, but I find myself, is there any team that like has been notoriously bad the last few years that you find yourself checking the standings and going, come on, just pick it up? Because you know who I do that to? The Kansas City Royals.
See, I was going to say the Twins.
Yeah, the Twins, we have that hometown AAA tie, too. But, by the way, did anybody else notice the irony in Joe Mauer, catcher for the Twins, his wife having twins? I mean, really? That's like,
I bet it was genetically done in a lab to make sure.
If they put that in like a Disney movie, I would like throw my TV out the window. Oh, come on. How stupid
But it's only
is
if
that?
the Twins, by the time they're 1, can throw 95-mile-an-hour fastballs. So you would have 1-year-old female twins pitching for the Minnesota Twins. Now, that's a Disney movie.
Could you imagine if he played for the Giants? Oh, that poor woman.
God. I don't even know if a C-section would have helped.
or
bad.
If he played for the Pirates.
No.
Baby comes out with an eye patch.
No,
anyway,
no.
all right. I digress. We were going through the standings, and I
That
was
was
talking
bad.
about it was atrocious.
That
And
was
I had to
so
go there. It was absolutely atrocious. And the AL or the NL West, the Dodgers, riding the wave of the Yosiel Puig call up, are now in first place in the NL West with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I have to call my Arizona Diamondbacks because I picked them to win the division. Now a half game behind, 5-5 in their last 10. A little surprise there. But jumping up to the AL East now, because everybody, when you're talking baseball, you have to mention the Yankees. And we got into it a little bit. What's your reaction to this whole mess now with this whole A-Rod, Brian Cashman fiasco here with the doctor?
It's funny. I mean, I think... Okay, it was obvious that Cashman didn't want A-Rod back. I mean, the Yankees want to distance themselves from A-Rod as fast as the Patriots did from Hernandez. I know that steroid abuse and triple homicide is not on the same level, but I think both teams, on a very similar plane, want to distance themselves from this player. Yankees probably have a more financial reason, being, like I mentioned before, they still owe A-Rod $100 million over the next 4 seasons. But Cashman, I think, might have made a mistake because now I guess the doctor that said that A-Rod has this phantom injury, this phantom leg injury that he doesn't, the doctor never met with A-Rod. Is what's coming out now, is that this guy never actually met with A-Rod before he made his diagnosis. So to me, it's kind of like, if Cashman would have just said, you know what, come on to the team. Obviously, the Yankees are giving baseball, the people that are going after A-Rod with the biogenesis scandal, their full support to hopefully get rid of him. If they would have just said, you know what, let's just let nature take its course, we'll bring him back, maybe he'll win us a couple games, and then we can get rid of him. But Cashman doesn't want him back so bad that he is trying to create phantom injuries. Excuse me. That I think is going to blow up in his face. Because A-Rod's already getting lawyers, and he's trying to fight the fact that the Yankees don't want him back. Because this might blow up in the way that even if he does get a full ban from baseball, because of this, if A-Rod can prove that the Yankees were falsifying medical documents to keep him from coming back to the team, they would probably still have to pay him his full salary for the remainder of his contract. So to me, I think this is a huge joke. I mean, it's turned in the Yankees, the most storied franchise in professional sports, is turning into a 3-ring circus this year. And it's sad. It really is.
Well, now, Mark Feinsand has Brian Cashman's complete statement. Okay, so this is from Brian Cashman. I heard via a text message this afternoon from Alex Rodriguez that he had retained a doctor to review his medical situation. In media reports, we have since learned that the doctor in question has acknowledged that he did not examine Mr. Rodriguez and that he was not retained to do a comprehensive medical examination of Mr. Rodriguez. Contrary to the basic agreement, Mr. Rodriguez did not notify us at any time that he was seeking a second opinion from any doctor with regard to his quad strain. As you know, it is the Yankees' desire to have Alex return to the lineup as soon as possible. We have done everything to try and accomplish this. As early as Friday, July 12th, when I suggested to Alex that we move his rehab from Tampa to AAA Scranton, Alex complained for the first time of quote-unquote tightness in his quad and therefore refused to consent to the transfer of his assignment. Again, last Sunday, Alex advised that he had stiffness in his quad and should not play on Sunday or Monday. We sent Alex to New York Presbyterian Hospital for an MRI, which evidenced a grade 1 strain. As always, we will follow the rules and regulations set forth in the basic agreement and will again reevaluate Alex in Tampa tomorrow, as our goal is to return him to the lineup as soon as he is medically capable of doing so, end quote. So 2 takes on that. One, here is a Major League Baseball GM releasing a pretty wordy statement to try to explain what the heck is really going on. And quite frankly, doesn't paint Alex Rodriguez in a very, very good light by that statement. Mm-hmm. You have A-Rod all of a sudden complaining about tightness in his quad. He's the one that didn't want to play, so they sent him down, and all of a sudden he's getting a doctor that hasn't even examined him. So the other side of this is this screams to me, because he brings up the basic agreement, that they are possibly looking for a way to void that contract if they find that he is in violation of that contract.
Well, this is just, like I said, it's turned into a big mess. It's a he said, she said. A-Rod saying he didn't say that, and they're saying he did say it, and he's saying the doctors are wrong, and they're saying the doctors are right, and they did everything right. Who do you believe? I'm sorry, I don't trust Cashman as much as I trust A-Rod. That's the thing, is who do you believe in this situation?
The guy that intentionally stood in front of a press conference and tried to make everyone believe that he had, basically he sat up there and said, I know nothing. Nothing.
Oh yeah, no, he's a scumbag.
That's what I hear when I hear A-Rod talk. That's what I hear when I hear A-Rod talk.
Yeah.
Just like Ryan Braun.
Yeah. No, they're idiots. They're arrogant. They're just cocky schmucks that think they're above the law.
In fact, they should do a 2-man show touring the nation, A-Rod and Braun, and make it a stand-up comedy, and they can just recite their press conferences over, and the audiences will roll with laughter.
Well, let's just hope that Off-Broadway doesn't have drug testing.
Well, it all depends on what they've negotiated with their respective labor union.
That's true. Labor unions.
Yeah. So the other trade that went down was the Baltimore Orioles picking up an added arm in the bullpen. K-Rod making his return to prominence. Hasn't been on a contender since I think it was his first year with the Mets that they were still kind of in the neighborhood of contending. So now digging in, I'm like, wow, does Baltimore really need a closer? Because they're 57-44, 3.5 games out, which not for nothing. The AL East is just absolute ridiculousness.
It's crazy.
The top 3 teams, and ESPN.com has tonight's results in there already. Boston is 61 wins, Tampa Bay 60, Baltimore 57. Baltimore could be leading the AL Central, the NL East, and the NL West right now, but they're third in their own division.
Yeah.
So, but looking at the stats and the roster now, their closer right now, Jim Johnson, has an 85% save percentage, but the team is right in the middle at 70%.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they have the most saves in the American League. So what K-Rod gives them, if he's anything close to what he used to be, is another arm, maybe an eighth-inning arm, a setup guy, maybe not to be the closer guy, but just another arm with late-inning, big-game experience, which I think, outside of the Yankees, the Red Sox have questions in their bullpen now due to injury. Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay. I mean, they're playing as good a baseball as anybody. They've been absolutely on fire. But their closer, Fernando Rodney, is as good as they come. You know, he's got 24 saves. So I think this move, providing nothing else catastrophic happens, might be a difference maker if they can make the playoffs, being third in their own division. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I know some of their saves are high, but they've been having some issues with some of the late inning pitching. It's just the fact that they're scoring so much that it's put them in a position where, you know, in the late innings you can give up a run or two and still win the game. But I think going into the postseason, having that extra, and like you said, having somebody that's been there and has some experience playing in big games, it kind of gives them a little more of a veteran presence, which, I mean, they're dangerous. I honestly still think the most dangerous team in Major League Baseball right now are the Pirates, but I think Baltimore's right there. And I know they're 3 games back and they're in third place right now in the East, but they're one of those teams that if they can get on a run, and if they can continue the hot streak that they had going in the first half of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if they could find their way, because, you know, you got to wonder, you and I both saw Boston and the Yankees for what they were before the season started, and both teams have surprised us. Boston the most, because right now they're, 60 games and in first place. But I'm wondering how long that's going to last. And if things start to crumble and they start to go down a little bit, a team like Baltimore could easily move up into second and then might even, be able to overtake Tampa for first.
You look at on the offensive side of the ball, the field, the offensive side of the game. Baltimore is third in runs scored. They're first in team home runs. Okay, they're third in batting average. They are ninth in on-base percentage. So if there's a weakness, that would be it. But they're first in slugging percentage, and they're third in OPS, which is a better stat to me than slugging percentage. The teams that are above them, Boston and Detroit. Detroit's got Miguel Cabrera. Boston's got a pretty much loaded lineup. And right underneath them, Tampa Bay. The Angels are still fifth in OPS, even though they can't win a game when they need to. So, offensively, that is a team that should scare people. The opportunity is on defense and in pitching. They have a 4.29 ERA, which is 12th in the American League. When it comes to quality starts, they are 7th, middle of the road in the American League. Batting average against, they are 13th. So they have some work to do, and getting help in the bullpen will no doubt be part of it. But if they can find a way to shore up that starting pitching, you may see a mid-season swing, and that American League East is sure as heck going to be something fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it to me, I think, is going to hinder on, can Chris Davis continue what he did offensively? Because if he can be that offensive catalyst in the second half of the season with the improvements with pitching, I think they can be very dangerous. But it's, we're going to have to see. A lot of times you have players like him that are kind of a flash in the pan, have a good first half of the season, and kind of piddle out. So it's going to be interesting.
You are still dangerous. But
Too
can be my
dangerous. I said
wingman
fiddle.
anytime. Anyway, let's take a break because when we come back, the Fantasy Greek, Jim Saranteas, will be joining us to talk a little NFL at the 11 o'clock hour. We'll be back in about 8 minutes, folks. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
but it was long ago, and now it's in this mind. They're gonna fall, they're gonna pay. They're gonna strike out, they're gonna play. And everybody say no war, no war. People in the street, no war, no war. They don't agree with the fact that the only response is a nuclear strike. They call them insurgent. War, war. The only world insane. War. The only thing that wanted. War. Do they even know what it means? Yes, we scored tonight. They made all these promises. Their wedges lie. They can't keep their promises. We all knew that. They made all these promises. Their wedges lie. They can't keep their promises. We all knew that.
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. It's that magic time, kiddies. It's the NFL Hour. We welcome with us Jim Saranteas. You know him better as the Fantasy Greek. Follow him on Twitter at the Fantasy Greek. And the website is thefantasygreek.com. Mr. Saranteas, how are you, sir?
Keith and Steve, I'm doing great. What a great intro!
Phenomenal.
What a great song. I don't know what that was, but it was jamming.
That would be Counting Crows, Have You Seen Me Lately, off of Recovering the Satellites, 1995.
That's awesome. I'm so jacked. Last week I was really tired. This week I'm still tired, but I'm kind of jacked up to be here.
What song?
Nice.
What song did I play you into last week? You were all hyped up about that too. That was
It was a lullaby. That's why he got tired.
oh, it was Born to Be Wild. A little Steppenwolf there.
Little Steppenwolf.
Yeah, a little. See, like, how can you not get jacked up? But anyway,
All right, we're
anyway,
wasting talking time. I want to hear what Jim has to say.
I digress. Maybe that'll be Jim's theme song from now on.
Okay, I digress.
Okay, so in the NFL, a little bit of news since we last spoke. Von Miller, linebacker for the Denver Broncos, facing a 4-game suspension, which, 4 games is obviously a quarter of the NFL season. Teams can overcome that, especially one that seems to be as loaded as the Denver Broncos. However, in the offseason, there was that little technicality of losing Elvis Dumervil. So I think now, all of a sudden, there's some holes in that Denver. There's a big hole in that Denver defense that I don't know who's going to step up and take the place. The only thing that's stopping me from being more worried is that it is only 4 games. But in the NFL, if they go 1-3 during that stretch, that's a big hole to dig out. What's your take on it, Jim?
Keith, it definitely is disconcerting. I mean, there's not a whole lot of depth at the linebacker position for the Broncos. It was definitely one of their positions of need going into the draft. And they just really sort of, missed getting anybody to fill in at that position. But one of the things that they did do was they signed Sean Phillips out of San Diego, who came out as a free agent this season. And while, Sean's not going to, he's not the second coming of Atlas or anything like that. The fact of the matter is he's a decent linebacker. I think he posted one of his best seasons last year with 9 sacks. So he's somebody that should be able to be a stopgap linebacker for this team until Von Miller gets back in. They've got a solid weak side linebacker in Wesley Woodyard. Nate Irving is lined up as middle linebacker, so he's the guy that pretty much, I mean, they're setting it all up on his shoulders to sort of plug the middle. That's probably the bigger concern. But now, to your point about the schedule, it's actually interesting. They play the Ravens, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Eagles. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty good about that Raiders game. They should be winning no matter what.
Especially 3 of those games are home games.
Absolutely. That's the Ravens, Raiders, and Eagles. And, I can still see them winning all 4 games, and the main reason being this has to be the high-powered offense of the NFL for 2013.
Absolutely.
I cannot even imagine a team that could keep up with these guys. I mean, they should be scoring on almost every drive. 3 top wide receivers, top running back with top backups, great tight ends. Matt Prater should be a stud this year. I mean, defensively, their secondary is awesome. I mean, they were one of the higher scoring defenses, at least towards the end of last season. So I'm pretty confident that at the end of the day, while they might lose a game in all this, Von Miller, the suspension should not kill him.
Again, that team is loaded, so it's very possible that they could just steamroll over this and not be a blip. And you make a good point with the signing of Phillips. And now, apparently Von Miller thinks he's got an angle to maybe not have to serve the suspension at all. So maybe this is all much ado about nothing. But
and I'm interested in what that angle is. I mean, I didn't quite delve into it. I sort of heard about it. I don't know if that angle has actually been shared publicly. I would doubt it. But I'm interested to say, hey, how is it that you failed whatever substance it is they're claiming that you had?
He sees things that you don't. Have you seen his glasses? He sees things that no one sees with those glasses.
I mean, have you seen mine?
No, this is true. But every time I see Von Miller with those glasses, I think I'm watching old footage of Marcus Dupree.
No, Jesus.
If you watch that 30 for 30, he looks just like him with those glasses. Anyway, so also today, an interesting, it's not really news, but it's an angle. Des Bryant apparently is trying to take some of the reins in Dallas Cowboys camp and says he sees himself as a leader, which is if you had to pick one to start a franchise with, Des or Miles?
Hands down, Des Bryant.
I kind of would agree. I mean, Miles Austin came out of nowhere, but Des Bryant, to me, is the whole package. I mean, he's got the height, he's got the body, the speed, the hands. The only question with Des Bryant has always been his head, right?
Exactly, off the field. I mean, on the field he's a stud, but how he acts off the field is kind of... He's gotten better, but I know that was something early on in his career that everyone was kind of afraid of.
It's sort of that Terrell Owens syndrome, I guess. I mean, it's a guy with all the talent in the world, and he could certainly tell other players, play harder, do this, do that. But, is his personality divisive or isn't it? And so far, it doesn't seem like it is. He's been a model citizen for the past year. And, I'm expecting big things from him. I've got him as a top 5 fantasy wideout. And if he's there for me to take, I'm taking him.
He'll be kept on my roster, just for the record, in case anybody's wondering, anyone listening in our league. Don't worry, he won't be available.
I'm the only one listening in our league right now, and I don't want him, so take it.
Well, and that's why I have 4 rings. Anyway.
Nice.
So now that we've kind of branched off into the fantasy realm. Last week we started talking, in depth a little bit fantasy football, with the AFC East breakdown. Let's stay on the agenda, just kind of bounce around the divisions. And this week, let's talk about the AFC North. And I will let you pick which team you want to start with, but who do you think has the most fantasy weapons in the AFC North on the offensive standpoint?
Keith, I didn't approach it that way. Just because you're little.
You know what? Every time I do this to you, I apologize.
Must-haves and the sleepers, and that's how I approached it.
Okay.
But here, let me put it to you this way. generally speaking, I think teams that tend to have more of the fantasy weapons tend to do better in the division. So let's start off with the Ravens. And I will say that in the must-haves, which I think is these are some good players that, if you have an opportunity to draft them at the right time, you should. You got to start off with Ray Rice. I mean, he's just been one of the most consistent Ravens. Last year had 318 touches, 1,600 all-purpose yards, 10 TDs. The guy is still a top 5 pick, despite all the stories that sort of broke out about how the Ravens wanted to get Bernard Pierce more involved in the offense, which I absolutely believe. But I'm looking at the touches between these two guys last year, and it was 318 to 115. And I just don't see Ray Rice losing 50 touches to Bernard Pierce. I find that incomprehensible, especially with the Ravens not having Anquan Bolden on the roster.
Is Ray Rice impacted at all by the loss of Vontae Leach?
That's a good story, or that's a good question. I don't think so, because I think if the Ravens really thought that he was, that they would bring him back. I mean, no one signed the guy. Everybody, all indications were he would be signed within days of being released by the Ravens, and that hasn't happened. So the last story I heard is the Ravens are thinking about it, but no one's jumping up and down over it, and maybe part of it is posturing. Maybe Bonta has, a certain dollar amount, and the Ravens don't want to pay it. And, it just might boil down to who flinches first. Would they be better with him? I think so. Without him, they obviously must believe that who they have in right now is good enough.
And the other question on the Ravens I have is Flacco's value hurt by the loss of Anquan Bolden?
I actually didn't have Joe on either my must-haves or the second category, which you gave me, which was sleepers. Let's put it this way. His value, I would not evaluate it with Anquan Bolden on the roster. In other words, his value, I don't think is dependent on whether Anquan Bolden is or is not there. And this is what I mean by this. Last year in the preseason, the guy looked like he was on fire. He looked like he was the second coming of Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, what have you. And then when the season rolled around, he had some pretty bad, disastrous games. And then playoffs come, and he throws for over 1,000 yards, 8 or 10 TDs, no interceptions. So, when evaluating him, you can't really – he's got quarterback one written all over him, but when it boils right down to it, would you draft him as one? And I hate to say it, if he's going to be one of the last starting quarterbacks drafted, and my personal preference is not to draft him as a quarterback one. So I don't look at his value related to Anquan Bolden in that way, but I will say whatever he is, to whoever's considering Joe Flacco, I think he'll be just fine with the weapons that they have. Dennis Pitta is a guy that I anticipate stepping up. He was my next must-have. He's a guy that last year put up 61 receptions for 669 yards and 7 TDs. I mean, with Bolden gone, there's probably 700-800 yards out there and 4 to 5 TDs that somebody on this team is going to have to make up. And I think Dennis Pitta is a great candidate. Torrey Smith, maybe not. Torrey's one of these guys, he stretches the field, and is he going to step up and sort of be a little bit more of a possession type guy? It's hard to see. So, Dennis Pitt is a guy, I think, after the top 5 tight ends have come off the board, he's next in line along with, let's say, Daniel Owens from the Texans. Those are probably the next 2 guys that are going to go. And then with Torrey Smith, you got to treat him like a WR3 until you hear otherwise. I mean, there's a good chance that Torrey approaches 1,000 yards receiving this year. And, while that might push some people to look at him as a wide receiver too, I just would rather have him as my third wide receiver, not my second, in order to just sort of, get all my ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got a question, since we're talking about wide receivers in Baltimore. What do you make of the Jacoby Jones not passing the team's mandatory conditioning test? Do you think this is just a blip, or could this be a sign of maybe something that could be a problem in the future?
I think it's a blip. I don't think it's a sign of a problem in the future.
Okay.
There's been no real indications that this guy is tremendously out of shape. I mean, you look at him and the guy is thin as a wire. Mm-hmm. And for me to think that he's just put on 50 pounds and, I mean, I can't buy that for a minute. So I think this is just a blip. I think it's to get him in order, so to speak. I mean, he's their punt returner. And, I think he wants to be back and he wants to be playing football. I think what's more interesting is the guys behind Jacoby Jones. I mean, Jacoby Jones does not strike me as the guy that's going to step up and necessarily be the top receiver, because if that were the case, he would have done that by now with his 2 stints in with the Texans and now with the Ravens. Mm-hmm. You've got to look at everybody else on the roster, and it's just a huge question mark as to who could possibly step up. But because I'm your guy, I have a potential sleeper. He's a super sleeper to me that I'm prepared to talk about whenever you guys are ready.
Go ahead, shoot.
All right, the guy that I like, and I'm calling him a super sleeper, and this is what I mean by that. When people talk about sleepers, do not sit there and draft like 2 or 3 of them if you're in a standard league where you have 14 draft picks. If you draft too many guys that are, quote, sleepers, your team is going to be devastated. Sleepers tend to be guys that there's some upside, you need some things to happen, and I usually reserve my last pick for a guy as a sleeper. This guy, I think, you don't draft him unless you're drafting like 20 rounds. You have 20 roster spots. But I like a young kid that was drafted this year named Aaron Mellett. He's 6'2", 217 pounds out of Elon, which is Division III school, which is one of the reasons why he's a super sleeper, because his numbers are off the charts. In 2012, 97 receptions, 1,388 yards receiving, and 18 TDs. He presents as a pro football player. He looks like a pro football player. He catches like a pro football player. But the question is, can it translate to the pros, and will it translate this year? So I'm kind of sitting back watching that. As to the other wide receivers on this team, I think it's a little bit up for grabs. I like Tommy Streeter. He's 6'4", big guy. I think he's liked by the team. He's got a shot. But then so does Tandon Doss and David Reed. So we're just going to have to wait and see how that shakes out.
He's such a super sleeper. ESPN.com doesn't even have his picture on his profile yet. So.
They should. I mean, he is really an athletic kid. And
if you're right, they will.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, they took a chance on him. It's 7th round pick. I mean, it kind of makes me think of Marcus Colston, and we'll just have to see if he develops that way. And lastly, I'd like to tell everybody out there, do not give up on the Ravens defense. All these people sort of walking around saying, "Oh, this team defense is going to be different than last year." It's likely true. I mean, I don't see him as a top 5 defense right now, but I do still see him as a top 10. I mean, look at this roster: Chris Canty, Terrence Cody, Haloti Ngata, Terrell Suggs. They drafted Arthur Jones. They picked up Marcus Spears. They got Jameel McLean, Arthur Brown, Elvis Dumervil as linebackers. In their secondary, Ladarius Webb, Matt Elam, Michael Huff, Corey Graham, and then they've still got some depth there, all up and down the roster. I mean, this is a defense that should still be right there, and you shouldn't hesitate to draft them with sort of probably a 9th or 10th round pick.
Outstanding. That was going to be my next question. Now you're being psychic.
I'm here to please, guys.
All right, let's move down the division, and the one team that maybe teases everybody with fantasy prospects, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's your take on them from a fantasy perspective? They would have been the 3rd team I would have talked about, and there's some questions, but there are some players I like on there. I love rookie Le'Veon Bell. It was actually kind of funny when draft day rolled around. Everybody was talking so much about Monty Ball that nobody was talking about him. I mean, he was for many people the number 1 running back in this draft. He's a 3-down back. He put up some outstanding numbers his senior year. He had 1,793 yards rushing, 12 TDs, and added 167 yards receiving, 1 TD. He can block on 3rd downs. And as everybody knows, what the Steelers have right now is not cutting it. So I expect Le'Veon Bell to be the starter this year. Draft him as sort of a mid to high RB2. But, and I got to caution people about this, with rookie running backs, they tend to get a little nicked up. I mean, 3 games into the season, plus the fact that
defensive linemen and linebackers, they're faster than they are in college, so they'll catch up. And when they hit pretty good. But I still love him to be an RB2 for somebody out there. Another guy that I like that is a must-have on the Steelers, if he's healthy, is going to be Heath Miller. And Heath was having a career season last year before he got injured. I think it was the last or second to last game last year. He had 71 receptions, 16 yards, and 8 TDs. It was completely unheard of. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was going to him, pretty much every week, and he was putting up a decent stat line. And in a year where once you get out of the top 5 tight ends, and there's no guarantee with them either, you're kind of in no man's land. You don't really know what you're going to get with most tight ends. And if he's healthy, you at least know he's going to be part of the offense. They've got a solid offensive line, so they're not going to necessarily have to keep him in there blocking all the time. So I like him, again, if he's healthy.
He's ended up still catching 71 balls for 8 TDs. So
it's pretty solid.
Are you scared off by the fact he's going to open the season on the PUP list?
Well, have they officially declared that? I know he was put on the PUP list now, but depending which list he was put on, if he's taken off before the first game of the season, he can play immediately. Yeah. If he's left on it, then he's out for the first 6 weeks.
The Pittsburgh Tribune Review apparently has reported that he may begin the season on the reserve PUP list. So that's 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, that would be if that's what ends up happening. But if that in fact happens, then I would not draft him as my first tight end. But I would certainly consider him as my second one because again, he should have an opportunity to play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What about the defense in Pittsburgh?
Don't give up on these guys. The big criticism is that they're getting old, and all this ridiculousness about how the Pittsburgh Steelers defense isn't going to be the same. Look. They still have the same defensive coordinator in Dick LeBeau, and I can tell you for a fact, having talked to a couple different players, and one specifically that comes to mind who was on the team, the man's outstanding. People love playing for him. We obviously all know whatever there is to need to know about their defense. And, they've done some things to sort of bring in some young players that should learn from the veterans. So I like the Pittsburgh Steelers at sort of about 8, 9, 10. In terms of ranks. Because, again, once you get outside of that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right around there, defenses get a little bit more uncertain. Mm-hmm. You're not exactly sure what you're going to get, who you're going to get it from. So I would feel more than comfortable if they're there to take them because, at least you know what's going on there with the Steelers.
They got, in my mind, the starting nose tackle, Steve McClendon, who hasn't seen any legit time to date. He's got 4 years experience out of Troy. Did play in all 16 games last year, but he's a nose tackle, and 6'4", 280 seems to me a little svelte to be a nose tackle. But that's just my personal opinion.
You like him smaller, Steve?
No, I like the big fat guys to plug up the middle. That's what
Keith loves fat guys. He's got some kind of infatuation. I don't know what it is. Really, it's been years.
I don't really feel comfortable here anymore. So
here's a couple guys to watch out for. Vince Williams. Here's a guy that was shunned by the NFL. Wasn't even invited to the combine, which I was just stunned. He had such a great Senior Bowl practices as well as Senior Bowl game. He's a thumper. He's certainly a guy that I think in the long term will end up moving up into that inside linebacker position over Larry Foote. And one other guy, I'm trying to find him, thought he was drafted or actually signed by the Steelers. Here we go. Left defensive end. He's fourth on the depth chart, which is sort of back there. But this kid, Brian Arnfelt, he's out of Northwestern. If you're a Wildcats fan, you're obviously very familiar with him. But I saw him at the Northwestern Pro Day, and this guy, I swear to God, tied. I think it was Bjorn Warner or one of those guys had the most bench presses at 250. I watched Brian tie that, and nobody else, as I recall, at the combine came very close, or at least if there were a few. The the operative word would be few.
Yeah.
Brian's a big guy, and I mean he's a young guy, and you know, I mean he seemed to show what it would take to be a pro in the NFL. So I think they've got some young guys, including Shamarko Thomas. He's another great guy. That was a great pick.
Syracuse. That's all I'm going to say.
Syracuse,
the one college that can produce multiple NFL talent but can't put together a significant bowl season. That's I'm done with that. Okay.
Well, you know they need to sign some more kids out of the Midwest is probably what it'll take. But you know, as long as we're here on the Steelers, let me point out one sleeper that I really like, and that is Marcus Wheaton. You know, one of the things about the Steelers, which is I think what's troublesome, is you got Antonio Brown and you have Emmanuel Sanders, and you would think without Mike Wallace, these two guys should immediately step up and sort of, you know, one of them should sort of take that role. And boy, it's really hard to see. I mean, they're both more possession type guys. Maybe Emmanuel Sanders might be more of sort of an X. But Marcus Wheaton, I really like that kid. I thought it was a great draft pick. He had a solid senior year, 91 receptions, 1,244 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. He is fast. He runs a 4.43 40. So he's another guy that's sort of, you know, if you want to spend one pick, your last pick or second to last pick on somebody to take a chance on, he's a guy to think about.
He also strikes me as, in a keeper league, somebody at the end of the draft to kind of stash on your bench for maybe next year because Emmanuel Sanders is on a one-year deal. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the only reason why, if you look at Emmanuel Sanders, you kind of have to like him. You're like, look, it's his last year. So he's got to give it his all. But that's also the troublesome part. Where has he been these last 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So winding up talk about the Steelers, let's move on to the Cleveland Browns, the Brandon Weeden era in its second year. What's your take on them from a fantasy standpoint?
Well, you have to still like Trent Richardson. I mean, what a solid rookie season. I think more people probably expected more, but again, you know, I mean, what do you want? I mean, it's a rookie season, 1,300 all-purpose yards, 12 TDs. That's not too bad.
No, not at all, especially on that team.
And
absolutely.
And by all reports, he's going to be ready to go 100% at the start of training camp. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, I wasn't too worried about what had happened. I forget what it was, his shin or it was something, you know. Just one of those things where, like, look, we're not going to take a chance. Just hold you out. What I'm excited to see is what he's going to do in this Norv Turner offense where it sort of begs for a featured back. And, I mean, if he could do what LT had done or, you know, what Ryan Matthews was supposed to do, I mean, this is a guy that could push for 2,000 all-purpose yards. And the thing that's sort of tough about it is the division that they're in. I mean, it's the same thing that sort of holds Le'Veon Bell back a little bit is, you know, this is the AFC North, and it's typically, historically, been the division with the toughest defenses. But still, you got to like Trent Richardson. He's a top 12 running back in fantasy. More than likely, he's gone by the end of the first round.
Nice.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, like, I guess I default to everything in my league, and he's not even going to be available. But if you're going from the philosophy of running backs first, if he's still there at like 3 or 4, I think I'd be shocked.
Well, you know, here. I mean, I don't see him going that early unless there's sort of a keeper format or something. But then who would release him? I mean, it'll be Arian Foster, Adrian Peterson, Alfred Morris, Marshawn Lynch, Ray Rice, Doug Martin, and then I've seen Jamal Charles really, people taking him within the first 5 picks, and I just don't understand why.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's reading something into Jamal Charles that just isn't there. He's not LaShawn McCoy. I don't think Andy Reid plans on using him like LaShawn McCoy.
But the question is he Brian Westbrook?
That's possible. That's certainly possible. But, I mean, why would you spend one of your top 5 picks on a guy that hasn't even gotten close to the kinds of numbers that Brian Westbrook was putting up? I think what you'd rather do is put it on guys that have either done it or certainly it's sort of the next logical step to getting there in certain offenses. I mean, Jamal Charles, he's a smaller running back. He works great out of the backfield in open space. They certainly got Niall Davis, and I think Niall Davis is sort of one of these players that he might end up getting drafted as a low-end RB3 when he's really an RB4, but he's got some upside because if they could dial the clock back to 2010 when it was Jamal Charles and Thomas Jones, I mean, you could in theory have two running backs in the offense, both of whom could post anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 all-purpose yards and 5 to 10 TDs apiece. Mm-hmm. So I just think Jamal Charles in the top 5, that's just overdrafting. You want to wait for him towards the middle to the back half of the first round.
Yeah, especially if Alex Smith has a rough start to his season, Charles is going to have a huge target on his back.
That's one way.
Yeah, he's going to be the main focus then of that offense pretty much if there is the struggles that, potentially could happen with Smith. So if you draft him right away and he becomes the main focus for the defense, then he's not going to start anywhere near what his expectations are.
Doesn't Richardson's value elevate because of the feature back, especially like you said with Norv Turner's offense, and the fact that most teams, a lot of teams, if they're not RBCs, they're somewhat close to it. And so when you get a running back that's guaranteed, albeit as long as he doesn't get injured, but guaranteed to get the lion's share of the carries and be effective with those carries, doesn't that elevate him into that top 5 echelon?
Well, you're assuming a lot there. You're assuming that it's the blocking for him is going to be effective. You're assuming he's going to get all those carries. It's just a lot when you've already got some players that are sort of set in that top 5. Okay. Again, getting back to Ray Rice, Arian Foster, Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch, and then I think Alfred Morris has to be a part of that conversation because he's more of a Michael Turner type of running back in the sense that he's a pure running back. So I would rather have those guys before I set myself out to get Trent Richardson and then hope that everything goes the way that everybody thinks it may go. So, that's my approach. If somebody wanted to take him top 5, I'd say, hey, go right ahead, because if you take him top 5, somebody that should have been top 5 is now falling one spot. Mm-hmm. And then somebody else is falling, and somebody else is falling, and that's good for me if I'm not one of those first 5 picks. So
exactly.
But speaking of the Browns, I wanted to talk a little bit about Josh Gordon because I think that's what's happened with him is interesting with those being suspended with the first 4 games. He obviously was, I thought, a solid wide receiver 3 entering the draft. You're probably going to have to draft him as your 4th wide receiver, but I think you still should. He should still be good for 800 to 900 yards receiving and 5 to 7 TDs. He's the best thing that hit that team in terms of a wide receiver, being in the offense with Devon Bess and some other guys that hopefully will take off some of the pressure should help. And one of those guys that I think is a sleeper on this team, which people have talked about but are probably not talking enough about because, again, you get into this situation, is it guaranteed? And nothing is really guaranteed compared to players who sort of have a track record, and that's tight end Jordan Cameron. Mm-hmm. Before the NFL, he was a basketball player. Big guy, kind of sounds like somebody that Norv Turner had on his offense back in San Diego. And even if you don't want to compare Jordan Cameron to Antonio Gates and say, oh, he'll get 1,000 yards and 10 TDs, don't do that. Just look at his production and the production of Ben Watson last year. And if you add those two numbers together, you come up with 69 receptions, 727 yards, 4 TDs. That's pretty good. That's certainly a high tight end 2. And if you think he can do slightly better, he could be a tight end 1, but I wouldn't want to risk it. I would like to take him as a backup tight end, or if it's one of those leagues, not enough roster spots, he's a guy that you're probably going to take off the waiver wire for a bye week or something like that.
I don't know. It all comes back to Brandon Weeden and whether or not you believe that he's got the talent to deliver to these guys. The tight end would probably be the most safe pick just because when you have a questionable quarterback, that position seems to be the safety valve, the check down. Josh Gordon, I agree with you, is that he's got all the promise in the world. I wouldn't see myself anything more than a middle of the draft pick there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So
now with Brandon Weeden, I will say this. I mean, I think it's promising. Again, it's one of those things. Is he going to take the next step? I think he's capable. He's certainly got a decent enough offensive line around him. They've made some changes with the wide receivers, with the exception of Greg Little, who I went back and looked at how many drops he had. I think he only had 6 drops, and I swear, when you would watch him, it seemed like he was dropping more than 6 balls. So, it's one of those things that we could be eating our words. I mean, they could not finish last in the division. They could finish second, but I just don't see that.
Mm.
And I feel bad saying that because I actually think their defense is pretty good.
yeah, you look at them on paper. I mean, they got the rookie Barkevius Mingo, at the outside linebacker, but also, Phil Taylor is a solid nose tackle, and they got the cornerback Joe Hayden.
Yeah, they got a lot of good things going on this defense. I'm trying to pull up their depth chart while we're talking here, and and they made all these offseason moves. I mean, they've got Paul Kruger.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Kruger. I forgot about him.
They've done some things with like DeQuell Jackson, Jabal Sheard. Even though there was a lot of talk that Jabal Sheard didn't fit this 3-4 defense, apparently they've reversed course on that, and they're happy with them. Leon McFadden was a high draft pick for him. They got Jamoris Slaughter. That was a great draft pick for them. I mean, they just look like they've got a solid D, and the rest of it is will it happen? Mm-hmm. And I think it's on the offense's shoulders.
Well, I mean, what's your long term on Brandon Weeden? Because early on in this season, he's going to be turning 30. So what long term expectations does this guy really have, or is he going to be the second coming of Chris Weinke, who kind of piddled out early in his NFL career, and a lot of people are saying it was because of his age?
No, he is turning 30.
Yeah, so he's turning 30. October 14th, he turns 30.
Okay. I mean, last year when they drafted him, my approach to the whole thing was he was a mature guy who already had some professional experience in any sport, and that was a good thing for the Browns. They needed somebody like that. And, he had a decent season. He had a few games that he was just great. Mm-hmm. So now the question is can he take that next step and, string several games together where at least he's performing well and that the team is not losing because of him? And if he can do that, then he'll have a solid career in the NFL. Mm. So, I'm hopeful for him, and I just can't find a great reason. Like in fantasy football, I don't even recommend him as a QB2. Mm-hmm. I think there's enough guys that have more upside than he does right now. But could I see him playing well at times and people picking him up to play him? Of course.
Moving down to the final team in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton is kind of, when he was drafted, everyone kind of scratched their head and was like, Cincinnati, really? But then you pair him with a wide receiver like A.J. Green and, things seem to open up. And you have a nice tight end like Jermaine Gresham. What's your take on that team fantasy-wise?
Well, fantasy-wise, I mean, it all begins and ends with A.J. Green. I mean, this kid is just phenomenal. Second year as a pro, 97 receptions, 1,350 yards, 11 TDs. How sweet is that? Mm-hmm. He's got, 100 receptions, 1,500 yards, 10 TDs. Should not be too much to ask for from him. And because the team took some steps, for example, to add Kyle Eifert, a great receiving tight end, and the guy that I would identify as a sleeper, as well as Gio Bernard, I think really can help A.J. Green sort of take this to the next level. Now, in terms of Kyle Eifert, I don't know that he's fantasy relevant. I mean, he's definitely worth a tight end 2. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put him as a tight end 1 until, we see what we get on a pro football field from him. But, I mean, his numbers are decent, 44 receptions, 624 yards, 4 TDs in college. So you kind of know what you can get from him. He apparently is a good receiver. I mean, he finished tops at the combine. Gio Bernard is a guy that I love Benjarvis Green-Ellis. I loved him back when he was with the Patriots. But he was either a little nicked up last year or, something was going on. They couldn't quite get things going until the second half of the season for him. So, it was wise to bring in a guy like Gio Bernard because he can be a full-time starter. And, But because of that, if Gio Bernardi's, who is a guy who should be drafted either as a low-end RB3 or high-end RB4, because he should get some playing time, if anything happens to Green Ellis or Gio sort of takes a step, he's a guy that could be sort of working this offense for the Bengals. So I like those two guys as sleepers on this team. And outside of that, I think you got to have the Bengals defense has to be part of the conversation. It's tied for first last season in sacks, 52 total. And it was top 10 in points allowed. And I want to say in the stretch run of the season, they had a bunch of turnovers, including some defensive touchdowns. So I have them as the number 6 defense to draft. I think even though they lost a couple guys, they've replaced them. And, the Bengals, what's amazing about them, if you look at their drafts the last 2-3 years, they are incredibly, incredibly good drafters. They are good at identifying young talent. And what's more impressive is they're great coaches. And, they could take young guys and get them out on the field and play at a high level very early on in their careers. And I like that about them, and I like them to finish second in the division.
Alrighty. That was a pretty nice and concise 20 minutes, wasn't it, Jim?
20 minutes? That's it?
No, it was 45.
Well, that's 20 minutes in gym time, because every time we have a 20 minutes, it goes 45. So for us, when we say 20, we mean 45. But it's worth every second.
And poor Monty's been sitting on the line, just biding his time, waiting to talk NBA hoops.
You guys hate me.
Monty, we don't hate you. We swear to God.
Jim, thanks for joining us, folks. The Twitter feed at the Fantasy Greek website, thefantasygreek.com. We'll see you next week, sir.
Keith and Steve, thanks. Everybody have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.
Take care, Jim.
Bye-bye. Monty, how you doing?
You guys hate me, man. I sacrificed my bedtime. You know what I'm saying? And you guys, you give me the scraps, and I just feel slighted right now, man. I just feel, just a personal, just jab at me, besides the Brandon Wheaton jokes and everything like that. You guys just like to gang up on me, man. That's all it is.
I think Keith has turned you into our Matt Damon, where it's like, we ran out of time. We got to reschedule Matt Damon. It's like Kimmel did all those times.
I feel like Ali off of Family Guy.
Well, think of it this way. When October rolls around, hoops will be much closer to the top of the feed, once baseball goes away. So you won't be at 11:30. You'll be at, well, let's see. We'll probably lead off with Jim at 10 o'clock, so it'll probably be 11:30 by the time you get on the air again.
It'll be 11:45. We're on time.
Why don't you guys just say it? Hey, Monty, what's going on in the NBA? Hey, they're shooting baskets. All right, that's good enough for us tonight.
That's all the time we have here. Thanks, Monty, for joining us. We'll see you all next time.
But are they shooting 2s or 3s?
2s, because we don't have enough time to shoot 3s at all.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Oh God! So let's get on. Let's get on with the show here. So in the NBA offseason, and no, we're not going to talk about LeBron and the Lakers today. We're going to talk about somebody even further off the periphery than the option of LeBron becoming a Laker. We're going to talk about Greg Oden. Rumored he's working out for a bunch of teams, but rumored that the Heat are the front runners. God, the Heat have lacked that post presence in the middle, that center, and to get someone with the potential of Oden, who has absolutely everything to prove and no reason to have any kind of ego, it just strikes me as too much of a perfect fit. What's your take on that?
Truthfully, I'm scared, guys. You know what I'm saying? I heard rumors not only about him, but of course, at first, Marcus Camby and everything. If the Heat add a center that can actually stay healthy, and I said this before, I think it's a perfect fit for Oden to go there, because he's a guy that's trying to work his way back into the league. We already know his injury issues. He had them in college as well, but still proved to be a dominant big man in college, which was something that we haven't seen from big men in a long time. But the thing about him being in Portland, is that he was dependent on as one of their main options. We've seen with his injury issue is that he cannot be a main option. Mm-hmm. He is not a guy that can play 30 minutes, 48 minutes, nothing like that. But to go to a Heat team where they've already have a shell established, so all he has to do is come in and play 15, minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and just give them some, shot blocking. Maybe put him on the centers in the East as far as like Roy Hibbert. To give them a guy like that would just take them to another level. So it's definitely depending on, of course, if he can hold up as far as health-wise. But, man, if this guy comes to the Heat, I think it'll be a perfect fit for both teams.
Yeah, and, a lot of people are talking about Dwight Howard and the support system he now has in Houston. But you look at Greg Oden, he goes to the Heat. He has, one of the best centers in the last 20 years in the NBA, Alonzo Mourning, who's still a part of the Heat franchise as someone that you always will see sitting on the sidelines, to be able to teach him and show him, what he learned over his years. And I think that's a huge bonus for him.
Well, not only that, I mean, Oden, to me, his game was always shot blocking, and collecting things around the rim. But like I said, the biggest thing about him has been health. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, of course, having Alonzo Mourning there will help any big man or whatever like that, because Alonzo Mourning did put together a great body of, he had a great career in the NBA. So that would help him develop, as far as footwork and everything like that. But it has to be health. And like I said, giving him those limited minutes just to come in and do what he's supposed to do, give him a specific assignment, I mean, it has to be that move for both parties here. I mean, it's just a perfect fit. But like you said, that is a very good point. Bringing in Alonzo Mourning to help him out as far as, maybe even getting Oden to the point where he can contribute, somewhere between, I would say, 10 to 15 points, something like that. Could be somewhat of a swing for everybody, but we already know that he's long, he's lanky, and he can definitely defend the rim. So, like I said, those guys that, are slicing through the basket and everything like that, I mean, they can dump it off to him. We already know LeBron has a division. We've seen Dwayne Wade do the same thing. That right there, would just take them to even another level. We've seen them win the championship without something like that in the middle. So to put something like that in the middle where everybody said that was one of their weaknesses, because we know with the Heat, point guard, center, that's their two biggest weaknesses right now. Mm-hmm. To add that right there, man, would just, I mean, guys, I'm not a Heat fan, not at all, but I mean, how can you not, say that they cannot, repeat again off of adding somebody like that to there if he can stay healthy.
And the other piece of news that came across my radar here was Mark Cuban thinks that Dirk Nowitzki can still be an MVP. And my first reaction was, yeah, he might, but not playing on that team. There's not going to be anybody around him. They cleared all that roster to try all that roster room to try to make a run at Dwight Howard, which blew up in their face. They never ended up with Darren Williams like they thought they were going to. In my personal opinion, Mark Cuban has managed this team into the ground as far as talent-wise. To me, it doesn't matter how good Dirk plays. He's not going to be an MVP.
I have to agree with that because there's just too many other dynamic players in the league right now that just by popularity alone will take over Dirk in an instant. But at the same time, you brought up a very good point. Mark Cuban has run this to the ground. Mark Cuban has been a guy that we've known has been as a ship type. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how well you guys are, up to date with your hip hop and everything like that. But he's been a Suge Knight type, a guy that has been extremely aggressive. Have done everything at all costs, and it's kind of like a championship or bust kind of feel with him. We see him get a championship, but at the same time, now because of his aggressiveness, we're seeing it blow up in his face. Nobody is believing in Dallas right now at all, period. And Dallas to me is kind of like in the same situation as, the Lakers now. They both have aging stars that have great names and everything like that. But at the same time, the one thing that Dirk has is that he's a great shooter. And one thing that never leaves an old player is that he can shoot. So we've seen Dirk get called soft before, and everything like that. And I think that this year we will see him go back to more of that soft mode. He is shooting and everything like that. But like you guys said, they're not putting anybody around this guy. I'm glad that he got a ring because Dirk, to me, has been a great guy, as far as what we've seen in the media and everything like that. But at the same time, I don't see any kind of inkling of a championship coming anywhere near Dallas in the future. And now it's time for Mark Cuban to actually sit back and think about what the heck is he doing. And, I mean, in the coming up years, man, you might even see the fact that people are clamoring Mark Cuban needs to step down or he needs to take a seat, as far as what he's doing, as far as being so vocal and everything like that. We've heard it before. But now it might be that time to go ahead and start bringing that kind of stuff up again.
Right now, according to BasketballReference.com, the Mavericks have Dirk, Sean Marion, Vince Carter, Jay Crowder, Bernard James, Josh Akagnon, and the rookies Shane Larkin and Petteri Koponen on the roster. That is their entire roster as we speak right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
First half of that team sounds like an old timers game.
Yeah.
It does sound like a nursing home kind of Bengay type, advertisement. They will be advertising Geritol, everything like that.
Yeah, Geritol.
We are very quickly heading back to the Derek Harper, Roy Tarpley days of the Dallas
Nice.
Dallas Mavericks.
Let's get Rolando Blackman back out there.
They need to bring back those uniforms with the Dallas or the Mavericks that had the Stetson hat on the M and the little lasso that looked just horrific. Because that's the only thing that's missing. And then we can transition into the Jason Kidd, Jamal Mashburn era where they couldn't wait to get the heck out of there. And then, ironically, Jason Kidd comes back. Who was he? Oh, Jim Jackson.
Yep.
It was Jason Kidd, Jim Jackson, and Jamal Mashburn, the three J's.
Yep.
I remember.
I thought would have been a feel-good story for Dallas, man, was that when Steve Nash became a free agent, I thought it would have been good to actually reunite them again. And I think that would have actually created a little bit more of excitement for free agents and things like that to at least woo them. I'm not saying that it would translate it into anything, of course, but I'm saying that, with those two back together, it would have created a feel-good story and, might have coaxed a couple people to come back there and believe that they could have done something.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, watching what actually transpired with Steve Nash, it makes me wonder how much he really has left in the tank at all. I know he was injured, and maybe that's not fair, but he definitely wasn't, even when he was healthy, he definitely was not the Steve Nash of young. Steve Nash of old.
And that was the other thing. It would have been a lot lower expectations of him with Dallas than he has with the Lakers.
Yeah, I would agree.
Look, Nash's wardrobe now is to have on warm-ups and a towel around his neck. I mean, that's just what he does best. He lays down on the side. He doesn't even sit in the seat anymore. He just lays down on the side now. He has a Sealy Posturepedic.
I tell you, he's got to put that towel around his face, though, man. That is an ugly dude. I don't need to see that on the sidelines.
Hey, Gary Neal is a free agent. He could end up in Dallas. Not rumored at all. I'm trying to find a list of remaining NBA free agents right now.
That's a big name right there.
How about this, though? I noticed right before the show started that Mike Miller is reportedly going back to the Memphis Grizzlies for his third time. But regardless of whatever the contract is that he signs with Memphis, over the next 2 years, the Heat still owe him $16.4 million. What a nice life. You're going to sign a new contract with another team, but you're still going to get a $16 million guaranteed from your old team.
Right.
We're in the wrong line of work, man, I tell you.
Yeah, well, we knew that going into it.
No, we are, man, because, I mean, there's people out there that's still getting paid. I mean, dang, they were throwing out people that were daggone. I think the Lakers are Then we said that last week. The Lakers are like freaking paying a ton of money to people right now that are broadcasters and stuff now, man. So
they're still paying
you're
Ron
right.
Harper.
Right. All I had to do was grow a couple more inches, man, and I could have had my life set.
Yeah, I would say the couple inches thing too, but it's more like a foot for me. I would have had to have grown to.
Yeah.
I'm a midget, but what are you gonna do?
I'm looking. NBA.com has an alphabetical list of all the free agents and where they've gone. I'm just looking. I'm getting into the B's here of who's available. DeJuan Blair is an unrestricted free agent. These are all middle of the road, underwhelming people that I would bet I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in a Dallas Mavericks uniform, just because otherwise it's going to be like Gene Hackman and Hoosiers. Coach, you need 5 on the floor. My team is on the floor.
Well, I think the free agents that are out there, man. I heard some of the big names that are still out there. Of course, Pekovic. Still hasn't done anything with Minnesota up there, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas, and like you said, DeJuan Blair is still out there. Linus Kleza, of course, and pretty much after that, man. I mean, it's pretty thin.
I know he's
as free agents.
I know he's a restricted free agent, but Brandon Jennings, I linked to another. A nice breakdown of why nobody's getting all hot and bothered over Brandon Jennings. And again, a middle of the road player that at the end of the day, Cuban's going to have to look around and wonder who the heck he's going to suit up just to be able to fill out a team. Lamar Odom's still available, but I don't know if they'll go down that road again.
Nobody wants to touch a Kardashian.
Oh, I wish that was true.
I thought it would be great if somehow Lamar Odom and Chris Humphries ended up playing on the same team, because that would make for an interesting locker room dynamic.
Oh, my God, it'd be amazing.
It would.
Get those fat, ugly chicks out of my life. I can't take them.
Now, what I'll post to you guys, because we did say that Brandon Jennings is out there, and it seems like nobody's really, basically, drinking his Kool-Aid. Do you think, because if you remember, he graced the headlines a while ago because of the fact that he wasn't in favor of the NBA rule, and remember he went overseas instead of actually going to college and did that and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
Do we feel that hurt him in the long run?
I think the fact that he did that speaks more to, God, I don't want to sound mean, but did he not go to college because he didn't agree with the rule, or did he not go to college because he didn't get any offers on the academic side? You know what I mean? Does it speak to his ability to be coached, digest a game plan and go execute? You watch that video breakdown that I linked to I tweeted it, and it's on our Facebook page as well. He is an atrocious point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely atrocious. He's a shooting point guard who can't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me wonder how much of that decision to go to Europe was his, and how much was really because he didn't have any real options.
Interesting.
It's too easy to say that Kevin Garnett jumped to the NBA because he couldn't pass his SATs. Kobe could have gone to Duke, but Garnett, as far as academically, was dumb as a box of rocks back in the day. Now you got that 1 year rule now. So did Brandon Jennings, was he not able to attend college? Is that why he went and played overseas? You know what I mean? I don't playing ball for a year. I don't want to think hurt him, but I think the fact that he had to do that says a little bit more about not his physical attributes, but what's upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point, man. Because like you said, I mean, playing for the Bucks was hard enough. Being a small market team and everything like that, and they were formulating actually, a very good shell. At the time, Bogut was there. They had Brandon Jennings, and then they had a old behind. What was it? Michael Redd was still up there. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
With that, and it seemed like they were trying to form a good core at the time, man. And then all of a sudden, like, it just came crashing down. And it actually speaks to small market teams. It's just like, man, how the heck do they get any kind of advantage when it comes to all these big market teams that spend all this money and everything like that? I mean, how do they have any kind of advantage at all when they see that stuff like this happens? Cleveland, they got LeBron, the ball bounced right for them. Now they got Kyrie. They're trying to build some things, but if Bynum doesn't pan out, how long will it take, for them to come around and because we already seen the rumors with them saying that Kyrie was supposed to be leaving, and then of course, thank God he actually put that to rest, which should be what every professional athlete should do, because now they're coming at LeBron, and, hey, will you go back or will you stay with Miami or whatever? He's like, no, I don't want to comment on it. But at least Kyrie came out and said up front, hey, I'm happy with the Cleveland organization. They're putting people around me. They're doing what I'm doing, and you know what? I'm happy to be a Cavalier, and I can respect that. People aren't doing that nowadays. Like, put the rumors to rest. I just think that a lot of people are just, have that big head. They like to hear the media around them. They like to hear all these rumors and stuff like that, and they're not doing any favor for their franchise or their fans at all.
You think about playing basketball in Milwaukee in the NBA. You start your season while the Packers are in full bore, and by the time the Packers are done playing, which is lately in January, you're already out of the playoffs. So, it's like, how does your fan base build any momentum? I'm just saying.
They need to get Jack Sikma back.
They need a lot more than Jack Sikma. So, Monty, we'll let you go to bed. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll try. I promise you, next week we'll have you on earlier.
That's what you said last week, man. I'm not even.
I'll force him, man, because I need to hear more from you.
Absolutely.
No problem, man. Once again, thank you guys, and definitely I look forward to next week, and let's talk some basketball.
All right.
All right, you got it, Monty. Thank you, sir.
Follow him on Twitter.
All right, y'all have a good one.
All right, follow him on Twitter @thesportologist. And with that, we are going to bid you adieu. We are out of time. We'll see you all next week. I'm Keith Grieve.
And I'm Steve Taylor.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.